Hey guys, it's Hayden here making another video. Today I want to talk about why slow and steady wins the race. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome to another video. If you are new to my channel, I talk about mental health, spirituality, personal development, and any tools I think might be helpful for anybody to know. If that sounds interesting to you, then consider checking out some of my other videos. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one in coaching sessions or energy work, you can check out my website, which will have all of that information listed there. So we've all heard the expression slow and steady wins the race, specifically in the context of the rabbit and then the turtle, and the turtle ends up winning. And I want to talk about how this concept is extremely relevant to recovery from psychosis, but also development or growth in any kind of process or skill that you want to learn. It's taken me a really long time to integrate the understanding that slow and steady wins the race, and I'm sure I'll learn it more and more over time. But I just wanted to share why I think it's so important to really understand this. And this is kind of a trend that I see in a lot of the clients that I work with, especially after psychosis, where there is such a disruption to the normal functioning of how life used to be. And there's this drastic change and almost this need for radical acceptance of a completely different situation, not being able to do the things that you were able to do before, a feeling of loss of power, maybe feelings of shame, of doubt, of insecurity. It brings up so many different challenges after going through something like that. And so, like I said, this concept of slow and steady wins the race is important in life in general, but especially applies when there is such a pressure and such an intensity of change and discomfort in life. Psychosis is by no means an easy experience. Oftentimes, for me personally, the recovery process was much more challenging than the psychosis experience, just because in my experience, the psychosis itself was kind of this unfolding drama that had its ups and downs and eventually was kind of exhausting. But it was part of a narrative that made sense and had a sense of purpose. Whereas after that process or after that experience, there was a void of feeling of disconnection and a feeling of shame and guilt and not feeling like I had direction in life. So I think within the context of psychosis, since that difference between the pre-psychosis state and the after-psychosis state is so severe, there's this kind of almost burning desire or this wanting to escape or leave or go back to the way things were before, or move towards the future out of the place that we might be currently in. And it can be really appealing to kind of fantasize and kind of look to the future or imagine scenarios that we wish we could do. And there's nothing wrong with those things per se, and I think it's very natural to do that. So I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to judge you or telling you not to do something. I think sometimes, though, when we identify too much with those wishing being somewhere else or wishing for things to change or wishing that the process would go faster, it creates a disconnection from where you might be currently in your process, which is obviously quite uncomfortable. And what work needs to be done or what process needs to be focused on in order to get where you would like to go. And so it almost seems like when we do fantasize about the future or about how we wish we were somewhere else, that fantasy seems so far away that it's often very easy to just give up and just say, you know what, like maybe I'm never going to get there. And that's like, I don't know, like I wish this would just be done, because the distance between where you are now and where that vision of the future is so painful that it's better just to like almost dissociate or disconnect from that. And I think part of that is normal to experience that, and that in itself is a process. But at some point, if you want to make progress towards recovery and towards a goal or a destination, there has to be a present focus, process oriented mentality. And what I mean by that is accepting where you are, understanding your new reality of where you are, what limitations you have, what abilities you have, and start with a goal of where you would like to go, maybe 1 or 2 goals, and then focus on starting the first step towards that. And when we do that, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to feel uncomfortable. We're going to get frustrated because maybe we're used to being more comfortable socializing, or it's a new kind of realm, and it's a lot different than it was before psychosis potentially, and that can be very irritating. But no matter where you're at, even if it's just like getting out of bed and that's your goal, what step can you take to get out of bed? So with this sort of slow mentality of like slow and steady wins the race, the focus is not the end goal. The end goal is kind of like the handrail that kind of gives us an idea of where we want to go. But the focus is really on each individual step. Just like if the turtle was in the race, it's like very slow steps, but maybe the turtle is very mindful of the steps that they're taking and really focusing on each individual step. Whereas maybe the rabbit is their mind's kind of scattered and they go that way, like, oh, like I wish I was over there. I'm going to go over there. And then your mind's like, oh, like, no, I need to be over there. And then I go over there, and we just end up like going in many different directions that may not be productive or helpful. And maybe they are helpful, and that in itself, that state of mind can be a process and a way of learning. But if you're really looking to move in a specific direction and gain consistent foundational results that will last over time, you have to set a few goals that you really value, that you really truly desire, and then develop small steps to be able to make it to that goal or destination. And that's the process, slow and steady. There's no fireworks, there's no there's no like magic cure, I guess. And do keep in mind that I'm not a counselor. I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up for anybody who's new to my channel. I'm just speaking from my own personal experience with recovery from psychosis and progressing in different skills and aspects in different areas of my life. So a big part of this slow and steady approach is going to be learning how to be gentle with yourself, be very accepting, forgiving, and compassionate. And I know those are big words, because when you're feeling really depressed and really sad and very overwhelmed, those words are not easy to do. And so remember that this is not about perfection. It's about showing up. So when you make a mistake, or when you feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm so much further away than what I want to be, remember, say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not where I want to be right now, but I am going to take this step and we're going to work on this. And we'll keep looking back and see, like, a week ago, I've been doing this for a week. How much progress have I made in this week? Look at your results over a long term, not over like each individual day, because each day is going to be different. Some days things go really well. Some days things are not going so well. When I think about hockey, when I go to play, some days I feel like everything connects, everything's great, like I'm playing amazing. I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I just go where I need to go. And then other days I feel like I'm completely in the wrong spot all the time. My passes don't make it to the other players. And so knowing in that moment that, hey, maybe I'm not at my best today. What can I do right now that's going to help me move towards my goal? Maybe do I need to just like relax today and focus on something else? And that's where you kind of need to learn yourself and figure out what's going to be most helpful for you. But at the end of the day, when you end your day and you have a day that maybe is not as successful or not as consistent as it has been in the days before, to remember that it's okay, and this is a natural part of the growing and development process and recovery process. So just because one day is difficult doesn't mean that you're falling behind, doesn't mean that you're going to be this way forever or you're never going to recover. And so when you start to have those thoughts that come into mind, remember that those are not necessarily true. Those are just coming from fear, anxiety, and worry. And it's okay to have those. Again, like that's normal to have those. But just remember to not like kind of engage too much with that narrative, because it's something eventually that if you engage with too much can create more problems and kind of lead you down a spiral. And again, if you do that and you do spiral, that's also okay. At some point, if you can, reach out for help or use a tool that can help you to get out of it so you don't stay there. But everyone spirals from time to time, even if you're not in a psychosis recovery process, or if it happens, stress gets overwhelming, we get caught up in stuff, and then you kind of find yourself in a tailspin, and you're like, oh, okay, how do we get here? How do I get back out of this? So all very normal things. So it's really kind of a shift in mentality. And I know in American culture, it's a lot about fast fixes and like getting like, especially in the US, like really focused on productivity, and you need to be productive. And if you're not productive, you're not like valuable to society. There's that kind of like underlying narrative that is present in the US. And it can be very, very difficult if we internalize that narrative, especially if you're not able to hold a job, or you feel like, maybe you aren't really like productive, quote unquote. And so that can be a really destructive kind of pattern of thought to go down. But remember that, again, your worth is not based on productivity. And the goal for you in a recovery process is to just show up every day, have kind of a direction where you want to go, and take the steps each day to try to reach those goals of where you want to go. And it's definitely not easy. For sure it's not easy. But doing it this way and having a mindset of, hey, I know this is going to take a while. It's not going to be fast. There's nothing that's going to magically cure me. And I'm going to use all the tools at my disposal. And if I don't know how to do something, I can ask for help. But it's going to take a while for me to learn and to grow and to be able to like figure out where the new standard of life is going to be for me, where the new version of myself is going to be. And it's not something that once I get there, I'm going to know everything. It's a process that's unfolding, and I'm always going to be changing and learning and growing over time. And this right now is just part of my journey and part of my process. And so viewing it from that perspective creates a lot more space than saying like, why am I not here? I wish I was back over there. I wish I was over there in the future. Why haven't I done these things? I'll never be good enough. That narrative can be very toxic to sit in. And it can be very unforgiving towards yourself and cause the recovery process to be more challenging than what it already is. And again, if you're engaging in that kind of narrative, remember there's no judgment. It's very difficult. You're doing the best you can. So remember to be gentle with yourself, even when you notice that you're being hard on yourself. The way to fix that is not by being hard on yourself again. It's by being gentle with yourself and understanding that, hey, this is challenging. You know what? I am stressed. How can I redirect this in a way that's going to be helpful to get me to where I want to go? So I've done a comparison for this process in another video recently, but I want to do it again in this video to really illustrate kind of what a recovery process might look like. And remember that everybody's recovery process is going to look different, but this is just kind of like a metaphor for how the recovery process kind of unfolds over time and having the approach of like slow and steady wins the race. So I'm going to use weightlifting as the metaphor for this process because sometimes comparing it to something else allows it to kind of sink in a little bit easier, and it might be a little bit more easy to understand. So I started weightlifting probably, I think, a couple years ago, and when I started weightlifting, I was going by myself and lifting, and I found myself injuring myself quite a bit. My back would always hurt, and I knew lifting was something that I wanted to pursue because I've had chronic pain in my back, and my chiropractor said that lifting would probably help my pain, and the small lifting that I was doing was helping the pain that I was experiencing, but it was causing pain in other places. So I knew that I needed help because clearly my form and technique was not on point, and so I got a personal trainer and I started working with him. And I was always an athlete in high school, and so I was used to really high intensity workouts, and I was used to kind of feeling tired after my workouts. So when I first started with him, it was really frustrating just because I was doing a lot of workouts that were not getting me tired and feeling the sense of like, oh, I did a workout. So I had like this expectation for the workout that it needed to be really intense, really powerful, and like get kind of that satisfying feeling of like feeling tired after the workout. It can be really a good stress reliever to have that kind of workout. And so I had to talk with him, and I was like, hey, like, this is kind of frustrating. Like I really like doing workouts where I feel like I'm tired at the end. And he was like, yeah, well, right now we're building a foundation because you were lifting before and it was causing you injuries. So right now in this process, we are going to focus on the technique, the form, building the foundation so you don't have injuries moving forward. And so in this process, I have always been of the mindset of the rabbit of like, I want to go fast. I want to get it done. I want to be there. Like, why am I not there yet? And it's caused a lot of anxiety for me. And so this weightlifting journey was quite a powerful metaphor for me. And it really helped me understand that like taking things slow and really listening to my body and listening to what limitations my body had and focusing on the process of lifting and understanding how it interacted with the rest of my body and learning the technique and really being in the process of slow and steady and understanding like which techniques were hurting me, where did it start to hurt? When did it hurt? How did it hurt? If I adjust it, how can I like change the movement so there is no pain and it's using the muscles that it's supposed to be doing? So when I started to engage with lifting in that sense of really listening and trying to troubleshoot problems with goals in mind of like, hey, I want to go over, I want to be able to to lift pain free and get to these like benchmarks of weight eventually, because that's kind of how you can measure progress in some ways. There's other ways to measure progress too, but that's kind of what I was looking for. It really made the process enjoyable to be able to focus on those developmental pieces, those technique, the form, and I started to see more results because like I wasn't getting injured, I wasn't frustrated, I wasn't doing anything at the gym that was spontaneous and impulsive that would result in me getting injured. So I found that the that lifting became a very like mindful and very kind of focused and beautiful process that I started to enjoy. So something that like was frustrating me before with like the technique and the form and all that like boring stuff that can be really tedious and frustrating. When I focused on like, okay, my body has limitations. I can't lift these things right now. I have to focus on like dialing back the weight. How do I improve my form? And focusing on that. It wasn't until then that I was actually able to like move up in weight, see progress at the gym, want to go back to the gym because I'm not injured. And so I really learned in that process that it's slow and steady, really listening to the body, listening to yourself and where you're at, being gentle with yourself, not forcing yourself to do things that are way, way, way out of your body's ability or out of your comfort zone. It's good to push. It's good to kind of try things that are new, but do it in a way that is safe, in a way that is a manageable step. So if I'm going up in weight and I'm lifting and I notice that my form is not correct that day, which as I mentioned before, sometimes we have good days and sometimes we have days that we don't feel as solid or as strong. So sometimes I have to drop the weight because if my form is compromised and I have more weight on there, then that means that there's too much weight for that day. And every day is different. So just because I can lift, maybe I can deadlift like 300 pounds normally, but if I'm having a day where I'm not really feeling that, maybe I need to drop it down so I can make sure I still have the good form. And that's what's most important. And this applies absolutely to the psychosis recovery process for sure, or any recovery process. I just mentioned psychosis because I feel like a lot of my viewers have experiences with that. But you can, once you learn this, you can apply this to any skill, any goal that you have, any process that you want to excel in. It's just about having a goal, learning, and then showing up and really taking it slow and really learning the information, not in a hurry to get somewhere, but really trying to build a foundation and trying to understand the process. Because if you don't have that foundation, you don't really understand the process, and you don't really like engage with it in a present process oriented perspective, any place that you do end up getting is going to be not from a place of a foundational structure. So like you're not going to have the foundation behind it to keep you there. So, maybe you can get a job after psychosis right away and, you can do it for a while. But if you haven't built up that stress tolerance skill and an understanding of what is too much for you, you might start to feel overextended. You might feel more stressed. You start to feel more tired. You feel more exhausted, your recovery process slows down, and then maybe you burn out, you have to quit the job, and then you have to maybe you resort to some previous coping mechanisms and end up in another psychosis, or you end up depressed, or oh my gosh, like maybe I'll never be able to work because like I tried and now it doesn't work anymore, and so it can lead down kind of different paths that are maybe not productive. And it would have been more helpful to maybe make sure that hey, I'm in a place where I feel like I can take the next step, and now I'm taking the next step and I'm acclimating, and I feel not stressed, or maybe I feel a little bit stressed, but I'm able to manage it and stay there for a while, stay there for like 2-3 months. And then it's like, okay, now I feel comfortable here. Now I'm going to add another thing. So like in my recovery process after psychosis, I slowly like reintegrated back into school after my first psychosis. And then after my second psychosis, I slowly reintegrated into work. I started at a fun job that was part-time, and then over time I could add hours as I felt more comfortable and less stressed. And it took me 2 to 3 years before I could work full-time in a job. And that was stressful too. Working 40 hours a week, even without being in psychosis or having gone through the psychosis recovery process, can be really stressful too, for anybody. And even if you don't struggle with mental health issues, it's stressful working that much. So you really have to listen to yourself and know what you can handle. And if you can't handle it, find ways that you can back off. If you need to find support somehow, I know everyone's situations are different, and financial support is sometimes hard to come by, but as best you can, try to find ways to get the support you need, and to feel like you have something to rest on, to build that foundation, so then you can build for bigger things in the future. And the only way to build that foundation is slow and steady, engaging in the process, being gentle with yourself, listening to what is happening inside of you, in your mind, in your body, and knowing what you can handle, and saying no to the things that are too much for you, and trusting that process, and knowing that things will get better if you continue to show up and you continue to work at it. And even if things don't, just still work at it. If you're showing up, you're working on it, you're doing the best you can, there's always an opportunity to make some kind of improvement with time. I think of all the stories of people who have become paralyzed, or have lost some of the functioning in their bodies, that are severe obstacles to engaging with life and to participating in things that maybe one would want to participate in. But when they're able to kind of work through that and slowly, figure out ways to write books or to engage with the world, they do it, and they're able to do that. There's stories. I mean, I forget his name, but there's that physicist who was completely physically paralyzed, but had a lot of really revolutionary insights into physics and all that stuff. And I'm not trying to compare your situation or my situation to other people, but know that just because you're in a compromised state doesn't mean that you can't make some kind of life improvements or work towards something that might be helpful. And if you feel like that's way too overwhelming for you and you're just completely exhausted, then please reach out to a professional mental health provider that can help you through that and give you the support that you need to get through whatever you're going through. I think having a mentor or a coach or a mental health counselor, regardless of where you are in life, but especially if you're feeling trapped and overwhelmed, is helpful. I will always have somebody who is helping me, coaching me, because I know there's always more for me to learn and grow. And having someone to go talk to you, having someone to share with, and having someone to sort of guide me in that process has always been important for me. And so I always am very supportive of people reaching out for support in that way. So I think that pretty much covers the video for today. I hope this was helpful for you. I really wanted to hit some of the key points that I noticed in the psychosis recovery process that I've noticed over time. And I hope that this video is helpful for anyone who is maybe in that place, either from someone who's experienced psychosis, but also providers or guardians or parents or friends of people who have been around psychosis as well, because those people also get quite affected in those situations as well. And you guys also need support and guidance and help, because it's traumatic for everybody around the situation. So My heart goes out to you guys. I definitely understand how difficult it can be, and I'm sending you guys all love. And I hope this video is helpful. And if you would like coaching sessions with me, feel free to reach out to me. You can look at all my services on my website, which is in the description below. And as always, guys, make sure to seek your truth and to take time for yourself. And I will catch you in my future videos. Bye for now.